Hey YouTube, welcome back to the first video of our channel, Reboot. That's right, Reboot. As many of you that are following me have already noticed, I have changed the name once again. This time it's staying. I'm going with the name Road Pros because I've been doing a lot of trucking content lately, and we're going to take the last of this year and try to kick it up a notch. So, next couple of years, my wife and I are planning on starting up a trucking company, and Road Pros is the name we're going to be working with. So, if I was doing a bunch of trucking content, trying to help you guys out some that are interested to get into it, just kind of seemed to make sense to go with the same name. That way when we get doing, the name will be out there. Yeah. But anyways, point of our first video back on YouTube, is going to be the pros and cons of getting into driving truck. Now, this is for those of you that have just gotten into it, or are right around high school, college age, and not really sure what you want to do, or maybe looking for some better options. And even if you already have a plan, you might want to look into this after you get done watching this video. So, I mean, give it a benefit of the doubt and watch this through. So, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of trucking. First, start with the pros, the good stuff. Number one pro, the money. You can make really, really good money doing this. I'm at about a year and a half experience. Might be getting closer to 2 at this point. But, I mean, the company I'm with right now will take guys right out of school, and you make the same pay I make right now starting out, because I'm technically new to this company. And, I mean, I can make between $1,500 and $2,000 gross a week. Matter of fact, I should throw in a little clip of my pay stubs here so you guys can see I'm not lying to you. And with that, I also get medical plan, got life insurance, got dental. Can't have vision. I opted out of it because I didn't want to pay that. 401k. I got paid vacation days. What else we get? There's a bunch of stuff we get. It varies a little bit company to company. That's kind of a general thing. But, I mean, yeah, you really can't beat the money. And, I mean, a big reason we're doing this is the wife and I, when we first got together, some stuff went on in personal life, and we ended up in a bad spot. And I was going to make a lot of money in a hurry to be able to get us out of it. And driving truck was really the only realistic option. And it has gotten us, well, we're still kind of digging out. We're still on the climb, but we're near the top. It's getting us out of trouble. It's gotten us into a lot better place than we were. And, I mean, I can't beat it. We're going to have our house paid off here in about 7 years or less and be completely debt-free at that point, too, unless we decide to buy another piece of property, which I kind of think we're going to. But if we just sat and did nothing, we'd be debt-free and own a beautiful little house. I mean, it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house on an acre of land, and we'll have it paid off completely in 7 years. So all you young people are under the age of like 35, whining, complaining about you can't buy a house, you might want to look into this. If it's something you can do, there's your answer. I'm doing it. I mean, if I wanted the details about what kind of background I just came out of, you wouldn't really have any ground to whine. So, moving on from that. Another pro of trucking is you will get to see the country. Depending on what company you work for, because companies vary a little bit where they run. I was with a flatbedding company called TMC, and they are nationwide. Company I'm with now only runs East Coast, but with a nationwide company, I mean, you get to see everything. I got really lucky because I started with them, I trained with them, and when you get your license, you have to pass a written test, you have to pass a driving test that gets you your license, but you still don't really know how to drive. You know how to maneuver the truck, and you know the basics of the regulations, but you don't really know anything about fueling, showers, dealing with shippers, dealing with receivers, actually interacting with DOT, because you know the regulations, but you don't really know what to do at a weigh station. You don't know about time management. You don't know about route planning. There's a lot of stuff to it you still need to learn even when you have your license. So usually what most companies will do is they pair you up with a trainer for anything from 2 weeks to 2 months to get your feet wet, so you actually have some idea what you're doing before they put you in a truck and cut you loose. So anyways, when I was doing it, like I said, we were in a mess, so I had to get it done as quickly as possible, and they paired me up with a trainer that, fortunately for me, was a young guy who, he did have family, but his like parents were still around, but he'd moved out, he was on his own, didn't have a wife, didn't have kids, didn't even have a girlfriend at the time, so he just stayed in the truck. And he actually was like the prime example of what you can do with this, and we're going to do more videos on this later, because he lived in the truck, he never left. He'd stayed out all the time. He did have houses, he bought houses, and he'd owned them outright at that point. He'd been driving for a few years already. What he was doing was he was staying in the truck because he essentially had a place to live rent-free because the company provided the truck, paid the fuel, which also gives you all your heat and AC and everything, and you got a place to sleep every night. So the only expenses he had was his phone bill for his cell phone. That was it. And whatever other personal stuff, I didn't have like Netflix or anything like that. But I mean, considering he had pretty much no expenses and you're making a couple grand a week, he was doing all right. What he was taking and doing, he's actually going to college. He's taking college courses for computer programming. He's working on his degree, and he could do that on a laptop in his spare time with a hotspot. And on top of that, at the same time he's taking college courses, he's also taking all the money he's making and he was investing in properties. Specifically for him, he was buying small houses to put up on Airbnb. I don't know a lot about that. I guess like some sort of vacation rental thing. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this know what it is, and if you don't know what it is, you've probably at least heard of it enough to have an idea of what it is. Which, I mean, that worked out as a really good deal for him, because by the time he gets done driving, probably in, I don't know what he's planning on doing, 5-6 years, about the same time getting done college, he's going to have a college degree. He's going to own half a dozen houses. He's going to be pretty much debt-free and be lined up for a great job for the rest of his life. So, I mean, getting into truck driving can be just a chapter in your life. It doesn't need to be the whole thing. And it can set you up really, really good if you know what you're doing. Especially if you guys are just getting out of high school, think about going to college. This might be something you want to look into, because depending on what program you want to go for, you might be able to do it remotely, which means you can get paid while going to school, which will cover your school costs and then some if you're good at this. So, moving on from that. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even tell you guys where I was going. I'm sorry. I digress. But anyways, I got paired up with a trainer, and he said, well, hey, tell you what do you want to do? He said, you want to be back on your weekends, or you just want to go out and stay out till we get this done? I said, well, I'm in a hurry to move this along. He said, why don't we just go out and stay out? He said, good enough. So he put us on a coast-to-coast run. We did a little bit on the East Coast because we started off in South Carolina. He made sure I kind of had my feet wet and everything was good to go. And he got us a load to come out of Tennessee, headed to Oregon State. So I got to drive my first real trip in a truck across the entire United States out to the West Coast. And we got to see the plains, got to see the Grand Canyon, got to see it all on one trip. Get out to the West Coast, dropped off our load in Oregon, they picked us up another one, dropped down the whole length of California, get to see the entire freaking West Coast, which, very interesting place. It's really kind of cool to go from snowy, freezy mountains, and the temperature was like 33 degrees. We were running tire chains in a snowstorm. I kid you not, 20 minutes later, I'm staring at palm trees. It was the weirdest freaking thing. But yeah, we dropped off California, picked up another load, come back through New Mexico and Texas. Ended up coming back through Louisiana, Mississippi, just made one great big loop. So in like 3 weeks, I got to see pretty much most of the entire country. I didn't get to see every little tidbit there was, but I get to see a good share of it. So if you like to see new places, be new places when you wake up, this is definitely a job for you. Moving along, it's easy work. I mean, bulk of your day, you sit in a chair and hold a steering wheel. It's not very strenuous. I mean, a typical day with the company I'm with now, I'm going to drive about 500 miles. And we're going to do a load or unload or both once a day, maybe twice a day. So, I mean, for a period of like maybe 20 minutes, I got to get out and turn a crank and unhook or rehook some hoses, maybe climb up and back and tighten 1 or 2 ratchet straps, open and close some doors. That's pretty much it for dry van and reefer. If you run tanker, which is more advanced driving, you might have to get out and hook up some hoses and start a pump, which is a little bit more. But again, it's only going to be once or twice a day. If you decide to do flatbedding, that's got a bit more to it, because you got to deal with straps and chains and binders and dunnage and tarps, and they all got to come out and be put on loads. They got to come taken off the loads, be coiled up, rolled up, folded up, put away. But again, you're only doing that twice a day. Other than that, you pretty much just sit in a big seat and hold a steering wheel and stare out the window. Now, it is stressful. It is a very stressful job. We'll get to that in the cons section. But, I mean, as far as working, it ain't like you're punching the clock, doing a 10-hour day in a stone quarry, smashing boulders all day long. You get to sit in an air-conditioned and heated cab and watch the world go by. We already covered, you get to see the sights, get to see the countries you drive around. I got little cheat notes down here. My favorite one, scavenging. One big pro of scavenging. You will find a lot of stuff along your ways. And no, I'm not talking about stealing stuff. You don't need to do that. Just kind of the perks of it, because you end up at a lot of places that will throw out some of the most amazing, astounding stuff you ever see. A big thing I get to take home to my wife and I got a little mini farm going. So when I get my days off, I end up building storage sheds and coops and pens, stuff like that. So a big thing I scavenge is lumber, and I find a ton of it. Big thing is 2x4s, because I run dry van right now, which means the square boxes you put dry goods in. Those are called dry vans, for those you don't know. They will a lot of times put 2x4s in there for bracing to keep cargo from shifting and falling around. And when you get to the customer, they scrap it. They pull it out of the trailer, they throw it in the dumpsters, or they leave it in the trailers, which as drivers, we have to clean the trailers out. So instead of throwing them every time I see them, I'll strap them on the back of the truck, take them home. And most weeks I'll come home 3-4 2x4 in the back of the truck. Save them up. I got to build something. I got 2x4. And it gets a little better than that, because running reefer and dry van especially, a lot of times you end up picking up at companies that manufacture goods. A lot of times they'll give you free stuff. Excuse me. One prime example was I started off with a company running reefer, and we got to pick up for Hershey's Candy in Hershey's, Pennsylvania. And they are notorious. If you come in there to get a load, you go up in the office, they will give you candy. You get bags of Hershey Kisses and all kinds of stuff. It's amazing. You also end up with loads that are damaged or rejected. They're still perfectly fine. One example was like with the reefer guys, we had a load. It was produce, and specifically had like English cucumbers. And a forklift driver unloading a load messed up, and he hit one of the pallets and broke it open. Even though it was their fault, they still wrote it off as a claim, which means they didn't unload the cargo. They left us with a pallet of cucumbers. And then it's the driver's responsibility to dispose of it. Usually it's written off as insurance, and they just tell you to go take it to a landfill or something and dump it or whatever they got to do to get it off the truck. But it's junk at that point. And a lot of times what will happen is the drivers will end up bringing it back to the company or other drivers, and people will kind of pick over as much as they want, and then they scrap whatever's left. So, I mean, we ended up with a pallet of cucumbers, and I ate cucumbers for a week. Me personally running dry van, I actually had a load for Morton salt. I was there to pick up rock salt. They would end up at Lowe's and Home Depot and other hardware stores. But I walked in the office to get my paperwork. They had a big pallet sitting there with little round tubs of Morton table salt. And they were giving them out free to drivers to sign on them and said, take all you want. So I ended up with a case of rock table salt. Another good one too. Where is it? Like this. Little plastic tubs. I don't remember where these ended up. Oh, these are something you'd find at Target. These little baskets, I think they're like $15, $20. Yeah, I got cases of these. I ended up at a truck stop. No, not a truck stop, a rest station, doing a reset. And I was cleaning up my truck a little bit, taking out some trash. I had a couple of shopping bags used for trash bags. Walked over to the edge of the parking lot, threw them in a dumpster, and I saw all these cardboard boxes stacked up. And I noticed most of them were still taped shut. So curiosity got me. I grabbed one of them, opened it up, and it was solid full of those little plastic bins in two colors, in gray and clear. And it turned out what had happened was another driver had a load of them. Or they were what's called loose load, where they stack stuff right on the floor, and the trailer leaked a little bit in a rainstorm. So some of the cardboard boxes soaked up some water and had water damage. Now, bear in mind, these are made out of plastic. Water ain't gonna hurt these none. Company rejected them. Left him a bunch of cases. God, there had to be 20, 30 cases of those. So he's just a driver. He didn't want them, so he went to the nearest place that had a dumpster and just dumped them. So, I mean, I wasn't going to let them go to waste. Well, as soon as I found out what they were, I started walking back and forth, just packing case after case after case into my truck to take home. And a couple of the drivers saw me walking by and asked what I'd found, and I told them, and they were walking with me. So, I mean, for like 2 hours, there was me and 2, 3 other drivers just walking back and forth. We lugged them all off. None of them went to waste. But, I mean, I've got hundreds of the dang things, and I use them in the truck because they're great for storing clothes. They're great for storing food. My wife's used a bunch of them in our craft room. We give them away to friends and stuff like that. So, I mean, you will find a lot of stuff, especially if you don't mind getting out and walking around. You will find stuff. I kind of like it. It's fun. It's amusing to see what you can scrounge. You find all kinds of stuff you want to look a little bit. You're going to learn a lot of info. You're going to learn about trucking, but you're going to learn a lot about how the logistics world works. Because, I mean, not only do you deal with driving the truck, you have to deal with shippers and receivers, which means you're going to be inside buildings in areas you're not normally allowed to go. So you get to see like how the behind the scenes stuff works at grocery stores. How cargo comes in, how the timing of stuff works, how check-in and check-out works, how goods tracking works. You learn a lot about transportation and the ins and outs of that. You learn a lot about how just companies get their stuff, where it comes from. I mean, I found companies in some of the strangest places I never knew were there. And you can learn a lot about what they do, too, if you just get out and talk to people. Like I had one company, they build saunas, wooden saunas. and they were specifically selling the ones I was picking up on the company Wish. So I was there to pick up a whole load of them. And little small company, it's all they did was build saunas up in, where were they? I think they were in Pennsylvania. But I backed in the dock, went in, checked in with everything, and I stayed on the dock to watch them load because I wasn't 100% sure what I was getting for a load. It was a little bit weird. And a woman on a forklift comes over. She starts loading the truck, no problem. This other guy comes over, I think it was one of the managers, and he starts talking to me. He was a little bit surprised to see me there. He said, yeah, he said, the drivers hardly ever get out of the truck. We never get to see the guys. He said, half of them won't even come in to get the freaking paperwork. We got to walk it out to them. I said, well, I'm trying to be professional here. I want to make sure everything's done the way it needs to be, so I want to be on the dock to watch. So, me and him got talking for quite a while, and he's telling me all about the problems they were having, all about the stuff to manufacture, where it goes and how much it sells for, and when the busy season is, when the slow season is. A whole bunch of information just standing there getting the guy talking. And if you're willing to go talk to people, you'll find that everywhere. You're going to learn a lot of people skills because you have to have a lot of patience with this. Well, you don't have to. Having a lot of patience makes this job considerably easier. So you're going to learn how to deal with people because you have to deal with angry people, you have to deal with happy people, you have to deal with frustrated people, you have to deal with people that hate you, and you're supposed to be professional, so you have to be able to handle it professionally. So you learn a lot of people skills that will force you to do it. You're either going to get good or get gone. That's pretty much it. And you will have a lot of time to educate yourself. There are hours of service rules, which we're actually going to cover in a separate video. And when I get that done, I will come back and you'll have a link up here for that, for hours of service. In a nutshell, there are regulations about how much you can actually work as a truck driver. You can only work so much a day, so much a week, and so on. So because of that, you end up with a lot of downtime, specifically 10 hours a day at least. And also when you're driving down the road, you end up with a lot of time where you're just sitting there. So YouTube, podcasts, Skillshare, books on tape, all that kind of stuff is great because you can just sit there and listen to it. You're driving down the road and be constantly learning stuff. You also have your 10-hour breaks. I mean, you can take college courses like my trainer did there and use the time to your advantage. You can use the time to learn and make yourself better. Now, with all that good stuff, there are some drawbacks. I mean, there's drawbacks. There's pros and cons to everything. Nothing's perfect. They're not too bad. Actually, my little notes kind of out of order here a little bit. The number one biggest drawback to driving truck is going to be how much you're going. And that really can't be helped unless you're lucky enough to land some job that drives local. But usually the local stuff doesn't pay as well. You have to go over the road if you want to make the money. So you're going to be gone a lot, which can be difficult if you have families and stuff like that. It's not too bad if you're a single guy, single gal, go out on the road for a few years. If you're trying to start a family or you already have a family, it can be trying. There's a lot of different ways to make it better, especially now because we are in the 21st century and we do have a lot of ways to connect other than in person, which, again, I'll put a link up here because we're going to do a video on that when we get to it. But it is tough. I mean, even with understanding families, it can be tough at times. Next one is you are going to work a 70-hour week. You are mandated by federal laws that you can't work more than 70. So to make your money and to make the company's money for the truck, you are going to work pretty close to 70 hours a week. But like I said before, it's not difficult work, so you don't really notice it. And there is a fairly good adrenaline rush. So, I mean, the time can fly by, especially if you're watching some videos or something like that to help pass time driving. Like I said before, it's easy work, but it was stressful work. We're going to talk about that a little bit. You are driving a vehicle that weighs 80,000 pounds or close to it, is anywhere from 60 to 80 feet long, has the acceleration of a turtle, the stopping distance of several football fields, and is about as maneuverable as a log falling roughly down a river. And because of that, a lot of people are not going to be very understanding. And you have to deal with road rage. You have to deal with very difficult places to get a truck in and out of. You have to deal with a lot of people that are very impatient while you're trying to back into an area or maneuver out of an area. Because of the regulations on hours you can work and stuff like that, you're going to be very, very stressed about time because you got to constantly be watching your time. And you'll be worried about going overtime when you're driving. You'll be worried about getting to the shipper or receiver on time. You're worried about getting home on time. Time is very, very important to a truck driver. So you're going to be stressing over it a lot. What else we got here? you are also going to have a lot of worries. You can be hyper aware of everything that's around you and anything you hit, because you have to at all costs avoid collisions, because you're supposed to be the professional, and they will actually tell you that it's your responsibility to avoid a crash. In situations where a normal driver might not be at fault, they may still fault you, saying you're the professional and you should have done what you could to avoid collisions. I mean, that's always in the back of your mind. A lot of people drive cars and trucks. If you guys are watching this, pay attention to this. You completely underestimate the maneuverability and stopping ability of a truck, and that will stress the drivers out immensely. Okay? Because if you guys like pull right in front of a truck, we can't stop. It's not that we don't want to stop, it's we can't stop. So you create a huge issue, and if you're driving truck, that does become very stressful at times. But it is culpable. There are different things you can do to deal with it. But I mean, it is stressful work. There's no two buts about it. It is long driving times. Move on to the next one here. You will, well, let me start by saying you are limited to only be able to drive 11 hours a day. Now, I don't think anybody on this planet can drive 11 hours straight, because somebody is going to need to pee. Also, there's more rules that go to it where you're actually not allowed to drive more than 8 hours straight, which again, I still don't know anybody that can drive 8 hours straight without stopping to at least need to pee. If you do, you might have a bladder the size of a freaking basketball, or you just stop drinking water, in which case you have dehydration problems to deal with. But anyways, for me, I usually drive, I think maybe 3 hours max between stops. That's if I'm in a really good mood and things are just going good and I haven't drank any coffee. So, I mean, it's not too bad, but you still need to be a type of person that can drive for long periods of time and it doesn't bother you. If you get tired driving 30-minute commute to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning, you're probably not going to want to look into this. But if you like driving and can drive for long periods of time, it's something you want to look into. You'll enjoy it. Another con is you can't always be where you need to be when you need to be there. And this is one that's hit me especially hard this year, because we've been having some trouble with a person that's been harassing my wife at home. And I can't really say, I don't think there's any worse feeling than getting a call from her at 9-10 o'clock at night when she's scared and I'm out in Illinois, about 1,800 miles away. That is a hard feeling to have to deal with. It is part of the job. She's fine, by the way. We're dealing with things. Things are better now. But I mean, at the time, that was a very difficult thing, and that does unfortunately happen. It is a drawback of the job. I mean, stuff like that, hitting holidays. It varies company to company. Most of them are really good about trying to get you back for important stuff. Some actually pay bonuses if you end up driving over a holiday. So, I mean, like Christmas week, if you want to stay out and drive, you can make a lot of money between Thanksgiving and Christmas, because the holiday rush, they got to move cargo, and there's a lot more cargo to move. So I know my family, I know a lot of other families talking about drivers. They usually have a pretty good understanding that Christmas and other holidays will happen usually like the following weekend. And it works. It works. It varies family to family, but it is hard. Because I mean, I'd love to be with my family on like Christmases and birthdays, but sometimes it just can't happen. Camera just timed out. I'm not exactly sure when. Hopefully we didn't miss too much. Another thing it can make difficult is relationships, which specifically, we're going to do a video to cover relationships and how to deal with them when you're driving truck. And when that one's done, that one will be up here. I will check back to get that filled in. But I mean, it's 21st century. We got all kinds of different ways to connect. Like I said, we're going to be doing a separate video on that, but it's still hard. You don't get that face-to-face time. You don't get the personal touchy-feely time with your spouse. It can be difficult, but there are ways to cope. And you need to have good people. You definitely need to be in a loving relationship if you're going to make it through this. So, I mean, that is a drawback. But that's the pros and cons pretty much in a nutshell. But if you want to really sum up the, because I mean, the drawbacks are drawbacks. So you really kind of come down to why would you want to do this? Like I said, for me personally, I'm fixing mistakes. Had some family do some stuff to me that they really probably shouldn't have, and ended up leaving me and my girlfriend at the time in a really, really bad spot. I don't want to go into too much detail, but just say we spent some time living out of my pickup and crashing on friends' couches for a while. So driving truck was an opportunity for me to fix all that, because I can make enough money driving that she doesn't have to work, because she's got some health problems, stuff like that. It makes it difficult for her to work. So by driving truck, I've been able to dig us out of a hole we were in. She's able to stay home and take care of animals and deal with the stuff I can't deal with when I'm not there. So it's a good relationship there, and she doesn't have to work. So she can, on the day she's not doing too good, she doesn't have to. And it's setting us up pretty good. It's difficult some days for me, but I have to keep telling myself that in about 5 to 7 years, we're going to be completely debt-free if we don't buy more land, which I'm kind of thinking we're going to. We're going to own a house outright. It's like a 1,400 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, and we're going to own it outright. It's going to be paid off in up to 7 years. If I did absolutely nothing different what I'm doing right now, which I got some stuff in the works that should speed this up, but if I did nothing but what I'm doing right now, just driving a truck, working for paid off, which is what I was starting to say there. So all you guys out there, I've seen a lot of videos lately of people like 35 and under, especially people in their 20s, complaining about how they can't possibly buy a house, they'll never be able to buy a house, and whole world's against them, system against them. There's ways. It's tough, yeah, it's tough. But I'm going to do it 7 years or less on single income. That's because of driving truck. So if you guys want a way, here's your way. If you want to see how you get into it, ways to deal with problems along the way, and how to actually make this work, you want to click that subscribe button, click that little bell, so you guys see when a new video comes out. I'm going to be trying to be more consistent about this, and hoping to get a lot of good stuff out this year. We're pushing it. I'm trying to get better gear going here. I just had a microphone failure today, but hoping to be getting better. Hoping I can help you guys out a lot in this. So until next time, click that like, click subscribe, hit that bell. Please leave me comments. I'd love to start hearing from you guys. And if you're interested in knowing any questions,